Welcome back. We continue our focus on the Firearms Control Amendment Bill that is being proposed. Well, Gun Free South Africa is welcoming a proposal to end gun ownership for self-defense. They believe this will actually assist in addressing the safety concerns that the pro-gun side has raised. I'm now joined via Zoom by Adele Kirsten and Mary Ann Nobele from the organization to discuss this matter further. Thank you to the both of you for joining me. Let me start by asking you about, the argument that says, why take out the ability of people to defend themselves in such a violent society? I assume that argument doesn't hold any water with you.
Hello to Leslie and also to all your listeners. I think we need to look at the bill in its entirety and look at what is informing the bill. And there are a number of things. And I think one is clear that the priority of this bill is in the interest of public safety. The other is that it's looking at the available evidence, both inside South Africa and globally, about the impact and the negative impact of too many guns in a society. And I guess a key principle of this law, of this amendment, is about reducing access. So it's not about taking away people's ability to defend themselves. It's about reducing the circulation of weapons. And we know that from our own experience in this country, that when you reduce gun availability, you reduce gun deaths. We've had that experience ourselves over the last 20 years. And the evidence shows that having a gun puts you at risk, and in particularly having a gun in the home puts everyone in that home at risk. And then, of course, given the high levels of violence, given the kind of the fact that guns in particular are a tool of the trade for criminals, guns are highly sought after commodities. And so that theft from homes, in-home invasions, the theft of a weapon is one of the kind of primary purposes of criminals seeking to increase their access to weapons.
Marianne, let me bring you into this conversation. The whole issue that that Adele raises about guns being a tool of the trade for criminals and therefore being a sought-after commodity in instances of, for instance, home invasions and robberies. That's one point. But the other point is that actually many of the firearms that are used in the commission of crimes are not the firearms that were initially licensed, in the sense that a lot of them are automatic weapons, the AK-47s, etc. So in a way, you already have a heavily armed society, with the result that as the people who are pro-gun ownership will tell us, that the one side will be heavily armed and the other side will not even be armed at all to even resort to it as an instance of last resort to be able to fend off an attack.
I hear that you're speaking of how we're heavily armed and that, other than handguns and rifles, they are like semi-automatic and automatic firearms. But I'm not really catching what you're asking me, the question around that.
So the question is, if these measures end up targeting private ownership of guns, which usually are the smaller pistols, as opposed to the actual, I don't want to say actual, but the other problem, which is actually ownership by criminals of automatic weapons, rifles, AK-47s, etc. In a way, it could be said that this is misdirected.
Oh, well, I don't believe that it's misdirected because, so I think ultimately when people are looking at the bill and the draft bill and, the changing of the law, they think that we're supporting and saying that when you take away people, the civilian guns, then you're taking away all illegal guns. And that's not true. That's not the reality we believe. We believe that by taking away or by not allowing people to have guns, we're closing that tap of legal guns becoming illegal guns. And I think this is the first step. I think also realizing that a lot of the time, I'm going to take us back down the timeline of gun legislation in South Africa, that under the Arms and Ammunition Act, people were able to own different types of weapons from a young age. And those guns weren't all taken in by the new law. So there are people who had still been able to own those guns even from that previous law. And so part of the changes that I do believe we'd like to see is calling out guns that are owned under the old law and bringing them into the new law. I think SAPS needs to be able to be held responsible because we're not blind to the fact that the reality is people don't necessarily trust our system, and there's been questions around whether they'll be illegally put out there. But I think if SAPS comes forward with proper ways of working, proper systems that they can put into place that would guarantee that not only will these guns that are being brought in, and like the guns you mentioned, the semi-automatic and automatic rifles, will not be put in the hands of civilians.
Adele, let me ask you, should the process not have gone the other way around? Disarm the criminals and then say there's no reason for any South African to want to own a firearm?
So I think, Tilasiswe, the point is that 99% of all guns are legally manufactured. So they were once legal. Okay. And so one has to control your legal stocks, and you have to reduce the pool of illegal guns. And I would say that's one of the criticisms we have of the amendment bill, is there's not enough clarity on how SAPS is going to deal with mopping up illegal weapons and what kind of operations they're going to put in place. So you have to do both. It's not enough to reduce access to guns. You have to get rid of the circulation of existing guns in the illegal pool. You have to do both. And SAPS don't need the amendment bill to do that. They should be doing that now every single day. And they need to be doing both. So if there is some kind of confidence in that this bill is going to be properly implemented, we have to see SAPS stepping up to the plate and making sure that criminals are disarmed. But part of the intention of the bill is to reduce the pool of weapons from which criminals can get access. So it's a both and, it's not an either or.
I see. All right. Thank you for your insights there. That's Adele Kirsten and Mary Ann Nobele from Gun Free South Africa weighing in on that debate.